Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. I am hopeful that all of you are fine and with good health. Today we are going to discuss another very important topic, that is the effective communication. Effective communication for the HR managers. In today's lecture we will discuss about the nature of communication and the communication process, and then why it is necessary for all the managers as well as the subordinates to be effective communicators. So this communication process is really important for the HR managers, and it may serve as the source of competitive advantage for the organization. So in today's lecture, we will discuss all about these things related to the effective communication. Let's have brief review of today's lecture outline. In this lecture, we will discuss about the effective communication as competitive advantage, that how this communication process can serve as the competitive advantage, not only for the organization, but as well as for the effective managers. Then we will discuss the nature of communication and the communication process, and what are the important stages and important ingredients of this communication process in the organizations. Then we will discuss the role of perception in communication. Perception plays a very important role in communication, so we'll discuss about it. Then information richness. What is the information richness? We will define the information richness, and we will discuss the different communication media according to the information richness, that which communication media has more information richness and which communication media has comparatively less information richness. Then we will also discuss about the communication networks. We will discuss the different types of communication, that is the formal and informal communication, upward, downward communication, horizontal, vertical communication. These are the levels of communication. We will discuss it in detail. Then how we can improve the communication in the organization. The tools of promoting better communication in the organization will be discussed. We will also discuss the role of technology in communication management. In these days, with the advancement of technology and the communication media, the the role of communication has entirely changed. So we will discuss about it. Then important communication skills which the effective managers should have, and what is the impact of different linguistic styles, and how the managers should be very careful about the differences in linguistic styles. In the end, we will compare the communication and HRM function. So this is the brief outline of today's lecture. Communication is the process of sharing of information between two or more individuals or groups to reach a common understanding. Communication is a human endeavor, and it involves individuals and groups, and the communication does not take place unless a common understanding is reached. So the basic aim of the communication process is to reach a common understanding. If this common understanding is not being met between the sender and the receiver of the information, then the purpose of the communication is not actually fulfilled. So the basic objective of the effective communication process is to reach a common understanding. And how we can have the common understanding, what are the different hurdles in reaching a common understanding during the communication process, we will discuss in detail in the proceeding slides. So communication is the process of transmission of information and understanding through the use of common symbols. It is the exchange of information between the people, and it occurs when one person understands the meaning of a message sent by the other person and respond it. Two forms of communication and information are sent and received in communication, that is facts and feelings. Facts are the pieces of information that can be objectively measured or described. Suppose If we want to convey the price of a computer to my subordinate, then these are the facts. Similarly, if we want to convey the daily defect rate of the products in a manufacturing plant, these are the facts. Other than facts, we can also exchange the feelings in the communication process. Feelings are the employees' emotional responses to the decisions made or actions taken by the managers or the employees. Organizations need to design the communication channels that allow employees to communicate facts and feelings about the specific aspects of their jobs. Whenever a manager wants to achieve the competitive advantage for its organization, they are always interested to concentrate on efficiency, quality, responsiveness to the customers, and innovation. And I will just explain that how the effective communication process can lead to each of these performance measures, that is the efficiency, quality, responsiveness to the customers, and innovation. And all of these are the different sources to create the competitive advantage for the organization. Effective communication can help to increase the efficiency. For example, if the organization want to their employees, so this training will be ineffective if there is not a good communication process between the trainers and the trainees. So in that way, communication can help to increase the efficiency. And it is only the good communication which helps the managers to learn about the new technologies, implement them in the organizations, and then train their workers that how to use their technologies. In that sense, communication can increase the efficiency. The other point is effective communication can improve the quality. Managers need to communicate to all the members of the organization of the meaning and the importance of the quality that is important. These different subordinates will not be able to understand the meaning of quality and how they can improve the quality and the quality problems and the suggestions unless there is an effective communication process between the bosses and the subordinates. Then good communication skill is also helpful to increase the responsiveness to the customers, because every manager and the subordinates will have to have interaction with the customers. And when the organization members who are closest to the customers, such as the different departments like the sales department, they are empowered, or they should be empowered to communicate the customers' needs and the desires to the managers. And the managers should effectively respond to their needs. So the managers must communicate with the customers, with the other organizational members, to determine how best they can respond to the changing customer preferences and their needs. So in that sense, communication plays a very important role towards the effective response to their customers. Another way the good communication can contribute towards the organizational effectiveness and competitive advantage is to increase the innovation, which often takes place in the cross-functional teams and which requires again the effective communication process. Members of cross-functional team develop the new products, suppose. Then in developing these new products will require the effective communication between the different cross functions and the different departments. If there's not a good communication process and understanding between the different departments, they will not be able to innovate. They will not be able to produce the new products and the services. So in that sense, effective communication plays a very important role to increase the efficiency, quality, responsiveness to the customers, innovation, and ultimately lead to the competitive advantage for the organization. Okay, let's discuss the communication process. Basically, communication process includes two stages or phases. These phases are termed as transmission phase, and the other one is termed as feedback phase. In the transmission phase, information is shared between two or more individuals or groups. And in the feedback phase, a common understanding is ensured. That is one of the basic objective of effective communication. There are the different other components which are important in understanding this communication process. For example, sender. Sender is a person or group who wish to share the information. The message is actually the information that a sender wants to share with the receiver. Encoding is defined as translating a message into understandable symbols or language. Noise is defined as anything that hampers any stage of the communication process. So noise plays a very important role in the effective communication. The more the noise will be there in the communication process, the more will be the barriers there, and it will lead to the more ineffective sort of communication. The less the noise is there in the communication process, then the more effective communication process will be there. Receiver is the person or group for which a message is actually intended, and medium is the pathway through which an encoded message is transmitted to a receiver. So these are important components which are important in understanding that communication process. So communication starts with the sender who has a message to send to the receiver. The sender must encode the message and select a communication channel that will deliver it to the receiver. In communication facts, as I told you earlier, we can communicate facts as well as the feelings. So in communication of the facts, the message may be encoded with words, numbers, or digital symbols. While in communicating feelings, it may be encoded as body language or tone of voice or pitch of voice. That is important. So communication must have a sort of feedback in order to have the effective communication, and whenever this feedback is included in the communication process, we term this it as two-way communication, because they allow the sender and receiver to interact with each other and to reach to the common point, which is the main objective of communication process, that is the common understanding of the sender as well as the receiver. If there is no common understanding of the message by the sender and the receiver, it means the communication process is not effective. As I told you earlier, noise plays a very important role in the effective communication. Noise is referred to the interference in the flow of a message from a sender to a receiver. So noise means barriers to the effective communication, and these potential barriers, like ambiguous messages, like loss of transmission. As you know, when we communicate, if the internet is not good, that creates the barriers in the communication process. So failing to the communication process, competition barriers, cultural barriers are there, linguistic language barriers. All these are the different barriers which create the noise, and which leads to the ineffective communication process. So we will discuss in detail about these barriers and how we can minimize these barriers and noise in the communication process. Then class, there's two important types of communication: verbal communication and the non-verbal communication. Verbal communication is the encoding of the messages into the words, either written or spoken. So any sort of communication through the written or spoken words, that is the verbal communication. The other type of communication is the non-verbal communication. Now, non-verbal communication is actually the non-spoken aspects of communication, and it includes the different communication aspects like person's manner of speaking, facial expressions, body postures, and the gestures that express meanings to others. The non-verbal aspects of the communication can especially complicate the task of communicating uh, in the communication process. Non-verbal communication is the communication that is sent without the use of the written or spoken words. This is the communication type which is quite powerful, because people can communicate without speaking through the use of the facial expressions, body postures, and the tones of their voices. Other than these things, eye contact is another important sort of non-verbal communication that people use to communicate. Then kinestics is also included as the non-verbal communication. Kinesics is the study of actually the bodies through the gestures, head movements, similar actions, and the use of reaction of the facial expressions. Now, all these are sort of non-verbal communications that depends and vary from culture to culture. So, for a good manager, it is important for him to be good in the verbal communication as well as the non-verbal communication. That is the communication through the body movements and expressions. So, as I told you earlier, that basic purpose of the effective communication is the common understanding of the meaning of information. And the different experts say that effective communication is the result of a common understanding between the communicator, that is the sender, and the receiver. In fact, the word communication is derived from a Latin word which actually means common. So, unless there is a common understanding between the sender and the receiver, the effective communication or the effective understanding will not be there. So, the basic purpose of the effective communication is the common and mutual understanding of the message between the sender and the receiver. That is the main purpose of effective communication. Perception plays a very important role in the communication process. In the both of these stages of communication process, that is the transmission phase as well as the feedback phase, perception is usually defined as the process through which people select, organize, and interpret sensory input to give meaning and order to the world around them. Now, this perception is very important, and perception means कि how you perceive a particular situation or a particular word. That is very important, and that is very important in conveying the meanings to the others. Now, in order to understand perception, let me give you an example. कुछ अर्सा पहले I was sitting in the Novartis company. My cousin was there, so I was just there for some work. इनका जो कंट्री हेड था उसका विजिट था नोवार्टिस के ऑफिस में. ऑस्ट्रेलिया से आई थिंक आना था, किसी गोरे ने आना था, तो बहुत ज़्यादा तैयारियां कर रहे थे. कज़न मेरा वाज मैनेजर देर, तो वो सारी तैयारियां कर रहा था ना. उसका विज़िट जो था अबाउट 4 बजे का करीब उसका विज़िट था, और उसने ये उनका क्लोजिंग टाइम भी था, तो उसने रोका हुआ था सारे एम्प्लॉइज़ को कि आप लोगों ने आज लेट बैठना है, क्योंकि विज़िट था, बड़ी सफाइयाँ वगैरह हो रही थी, सारे लेट बैठे हुए थे. नो, आई वॉज आल्सो देयर. तो उधर जब उसका विज़िट हुआ, ऑस्ट्रेलियन उनका जो था हेड, कंट्री हेड, उसका विज़िट हुआ, तो वो जो मैनेजर्स था उन्होंने उसको विज़िट करवाया पूरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का, और साथ साथ उन्होंने ये बताया कि ये सारे लोग लेट बैठे हुए हैं, दे आर दी वेरी गुड वर्कर्स. मतलब उन्होंने अपने तरफ से शो किया कि बड़े अच्छे वर्कर्स हैं ये, और लेट बैठ के काम करते हैं जब भी ज़रूरत होती है ना. वो जो गोरा था वो बड़ी देर तक सुनता रहा सारी चीज़ें. उसने पूरा राउंड किया. जब पूरा राउंड करके अपने ऑफिस में गया, तो उसने उस मैनेजर को भी बुलाया और अपने असिस्टेंट को बुलाया, और उसने कहा कि लेट्स टाइप द लेटर, कि लेटर टाइप करें. अच्छा, लेटर में क्या टाइप करवा रहा है कि जो जो लोग लेट बैठे हुए हैं उनसे सब की कहता है कि 2-2 दिन की पे काट लें, 2-2 दिन की पे काट लें ना. वो मैनेजर जो था ही वॉज रियली सरप्राइज्ड कि सर ये तो लेट बैठे हुए हैं, काम कर रहे हैं, और आप कह रहे हैं उनकी पे काट लें. अब वो गोरा इसको किस तरीके से ले रहा है, आप देखें. एक मैनेजर इसको ले रहा है कि वो बड़े हार्ड वर्किंग है, लेट बैठे हुए हैं. गोरा कहता है कि दे आर नॉट दी हार्ड वर्किंग एम्प्लॉयज़, दे आर दी इनएफिशिएंट एम्प्लॉयज़. कि जो लोग अपना काम अपने टाइम पर ख़त्म नहीं करते, दे आर नॉट हार्ड वर्किंग, दे विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज दी इनएफिशिएंट एम्प्लॉयज़. सो यू सी कि एक ही सिचुएशन को एक मैनेजर किस तरीके से परसीव कर रहा है और दूसरा मैनेजर उसको किस तरीके से परसीव कर रहा है. तो ये बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ होती है कम्युनिकेशन प्रोसेस में, कि एक कॉमन अंडरस्टैंडिंग होनी चाहिए, एक कॉमन परसेप्शन होनी चाहिए बिटवीन द सेंडर एंड द रिसीवर. और इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू फॉर द सेंडर टू convey the message which should be in the similar way perceived as he wants to perceive it. There are a lot of perception biases. ये परसेप्शन बाइसेस जो होते हैं वो आपके वैल्यूज़ की वजह से भी होते हैं, एटीट्यूड पर डिपेंड कर रहा होता है, आपके मूड्स पे डिपेंड कर रहे होते हैं, और ये सारी चीज़ें जो हैं आपके जो परसेप्शन क्रिएट करती हैं और बाइसेस क्रिएट करती हैं. नाउ फॉर एग्जांपल स्टीरियोटाइप्स, अगर आपके ज़हन में कोई ऐसा बिलीफ है which is a sort of stereotype sort of belief that can also create the barrier in the कम्युनिकेशन प्रोसेस. सपोज कि अगर मैं समझता हूँ कि जो ओल्ड वर्कर्स हैं या जो ज़्यादा जिनकी एज होती है वो इतना ज़्यादा चेंज को वेलकम नहीं करते. नो, अगर ये मेरा बिलीफ है और इसी बिलीफ को सामने रख के मैं कोई मैसेज कन्वे करता हूँ ओल्ड वर्कर्स को और उस पर इतना ज़्यादा स्ट्रेस नहीं देता, तो दैट इज़ नॉट द राइट वे ऑफ कम्युनिकेटिंग द मैसेज टू दोज वर्कर्स, बिकॉज एक बिलीफ पहले से मेरे माइंड में बैठा हुआ था और जब मैंने ओल्ड वर्कर्स को वो मैसेज चेंज का कन्वे किया तो वो उस तरीके से सीरियसली हो सकता है उन्होंने ना लिया हो, क्योंकि मेरे जहन में पहले से एक बिलीफ बैठा हुआ है कि ओल्ड वर्कर्स जो है वो चेंज को इतना ज़्यादा एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे. सो ये जो परसेप्शंस बायसेस हैं दैट शुड बी अवॉइडेड बाय द मैनेजर्स इन द कम्युनिकेशन प्रोसेस, और स्टीरियोटाइप्स और बहुत सी जो दूसरी बायसेस हैं दैट शुड ऑलवेज बी अवॉइडेड. As I discussed earlier, that effective communication plays a very important role for the company to create the competitive advantage while improving the efficiency, innovation, and the other performance measures. And the ineffective communication can be as dangerous for the organization, and it may create the different sort of hurdles for the organization. And as I said earlier, this effective communication process is so important for the managers, because one of the reports says that 85% of the managers spend their time in the different forms of communication in one way or the other. So if they are not the good communicators or they are not the effective communicators, it can lead to the different problems for the organization. Organization may suffer the performance problems, that may suffer from the other different sort of problems, and believe me, the ineffective sort of communication may also lead to the loss of human life. Now that is a real example I am telling you, that in one of the hospital, when the doctors check one of the patient, and then he communicate the relevant medicine to the nurse. Now nurse did not actually understand what the doctor wants her to understand, and he gave the different medicines to the patient, and the patient died. Now you know how this ineffective communication can also lead to the loss of the human life. So these are the real dangers of the ineffective communication for the organization. That's why I said that effective communication is most important for all the managers, and especially it is more important for the human resource managers. Now, there are three important factors which should be considered by the managers while selecting the different communication media. Different communication media and the channels can be used for communication of the information. Managers can use the face-to-face method to convey the information. They can also use the electronic method like internet and emails for conveying the information. They can also use the informal sort of meetings and the other methods for conveying the information. Now, we cannot say that one media is the good and the other media is not good. That depends on so many factors. Among these factors, the most important factors are the information richness, time, and the need for some written documentation by the organization. Now, these are the important factors which can help you that which communication media can be used for conveying the information. Information richness is the amount of information that a communication medium can carry, and the extent to which the medium enables the sender and receiver to reach a common understanding. Now, this common understanding strength of the different media varies from one media to the other media. We will discuss. The more the common understanding media will be able to communicate the information, it means the more information richness is there. This information richness capacity varies from communication medium to other mediums, I will just discuss it. Then another important factor while selecting the communication media is the time factor, that how quickly you want to send the information to the receiver. So this time factor should also be considered by the managers while selecting the different communication media. If we compare the different communication mediums with respect to each of these factors, that is information richness, time, and the need for some written documentation. Now this is the graph which helps us that which communication media is important and which communication media has more information richness than the other. For example, face-to-face communication. Face-to-face communication is considered as the highest in information richness. Now, why it is considered as the highest in information richness? Because the managers can not only use the face-to-face wording and the verbal communication, but they can also use the body language, as I told you earlier. Non-verbal communication, body language, and the different facial expressions and body movements can also be used in order to convey the informations. In that sense, it is the better media to convey the common understanding of the meanings to the receivers. In today's the different modern organizations use this sort of medium for conveying the information. Now unfortunately in Pakistan that is not very common, especially in the public sector organization. We mostly focus on the written communication in the written letters, even in order to convey the simple information to our subordinates. Now that is not the case with the multinationals and the good international organizations, and they generally use a term that is termed as management by vending. That is an informal sort of communication, and it is a face-to-face communication technique in which a managers walk around a work area and talks informally with employees about the different issues and concerns. Now this informal discussion with the employees is generally termed as management by venting around. Now this is very common in most of the good organizations, because these organizations no more believe in more that formal communication. If they want to convey the information to their subordinates, they can informally go to them and convey them. But that is not the case in most of the public sector organizations, especially in Pakistan. If we formally want to convey the information, we mostly focus on the written letters and the sort of things which requires a lot of time as well. So when we compare these media with respect to the time, this face-to-face medium is again effective with respect to the time available. You can quickly convey the information to the other end. Okay? From that point of view, that is also important. So face-to-face medium is considered as the highest information richness medium, as well as with respect to the time available. But again, one of the disadvantages of this medium is that you may not have some written proof for that. As far as the spoken communication is concerned, especially in case of electronically transmitted messages, that is considered as the second highly information richness medium. In this case, we can use the electronic medium to convey the different information. But again, one of the disadvantages is that you cannot use the body language or gestures in conveying the messages to the other end. So that is one of the drawback of these spoken or electronically transmitted messages. The other way or other channel which can be used is the personally addressed written communication. Now again, personally addressed written communication is the third highest considered information richness medium, and through this written communication the level of that common understanding of the message will be less as compared to the face-to-face communication and the electronically transmitted or spoken communication. Now, spoken communication means by use of internet or some other medium like Zoom or other medium to convey the messages. Now, personally addressed written communication is again is ineffective sort of communication if if we see the time factor, because it will require the time to post a letter to the other end. So it will require sufficient time to convey the information. The last communication medium is the impersonal written communication. Impersonal written communication is usually the one-way communication, which may include the different news bulletins by the organizations. Now, it is one of the one-way communication, and the other person who is receiving this information cannot give the feedback. So that is again the disadvantage of impersonal written communication. And again, this impersonal written communication is considered